Over the past decade, the moon has transformed from a symbol of scientific exploration into humanity's gold mine. Superpowers like the US, China, and India are racing to launch spacecraft, build bases, and compete for helium-3, a clean fuel worth trillions of dollars that could unlock the door to Mars. Nations are rushing headlong into this race, turning the moon into a lawless frontier that could dictate the course of space exploration, or even become a militarized stronghold. And China has taken an early lead. Samples from the Chang'e 6 mission revealed helium-3 concentrations 10 times higher than predicted, along with exotic minerals that could revolutionize global technology. Is this the first step toward monopolizing the moon? Will the world stand by as one nation seizes control of these critical resources? The hidden political schemes will soon unravel in this battle beyond the skies. The moon has long been a symbol of human ambition, but in recent years, it has evolved into something much more: a high-stakes arena where nations compete for technology, prestige, and resources. In the 20th century, the race was about planting a flag, proving who could get there first. Now it is about securing a long-term presence and controlling what lies beneath the surface. The United States and the Soviet Union once fought for dominance in the Apollo era, but decades later, the stage is crowded with new and determined players. For most of modern history, the moon's near side attracted all the attention. Its flat plains made landing safer, and its proximity allowed constant communication with Earth. The far side, however, remained hidden and mysterious, with rugged terrain and no direct radio link. When the Soviet Luna 3 probe sent the first blurry photos in 1959, scientists saw a landscape unlike anything on the near side. No wide dark plains of cooled lava, but instead a crust pitted with countless craters. This difference hinted at a unique geological story waiting to be uncovered. In the past decade, interest in the moon has surged again because of two main factors: resources and strategic location. Water ice, locked away in shadowed craters, can be split into hydrogen and oxygen to make rocket fuel and breathable air. Helium-3, a rare isotope on Earth but far more abundant on the moon, could one day power clean fusion reactors. Whoever controls these resources could dominate future deep space travel and even influence the global energy market. This is why the moon is no longer just a scientific target. It is a potential key to the next industrial revolution. The geopolitical competition is intense. The United States is advancing its Artemis program, aiming to return astronauts to the moon by 2026 and establish a base at the lunar South Pole. China, through its Chang'e program, is moving step by step with robotic missions that build toward a permanent presence. India, Japan, and the European Space Agency are also racing to land probes, gather data, and claim a role in this new era. Each success adds pressure on rivals to accelerate their plans, creating a chain reaction of ambition and urgency. The South Pole region has become the main focus because it offers both sunlight and access to frozen water. This combination could support solar power generation, life support systems, and fuel production. Owning infrastructure there would not only reduce the cost of future missions, but also give a country the ability to control a critical gateway to Mars and beyond. For policymakers and space agencies, losing that advantage is unthinkable. This renewed space race is not only about science, it is about who will set the rules for operating beyond Earth. In the 1960s, treaties promised that space would belong to all mankind, but those agreements never covered resource extraction in detail. Today, the legal gray zone is just as valuable as the resources themselves, because the first nation to act could set the precedent for all others. If the stakes are so high, then how exactly did China position itself to take the lead? The answer lies in a mission that stunned the world with both its ambition and its results. China's Chang'e 6 mission was not just another space flight. It was a carefully planned operation designed to achieve what no country had done before: bringing back samples from the far side of the moon. The journey began on May 3, 2024, when a Long March 5 rocket launched from Hainan Island, carrying the four-part spacecraft into space. Its modules included an orbiter, a lander, an ascender, and a return capsule, each with a specific role in the mission's success. After several days in transit, the spacecraft entered lunar orbit and prepared for descent. On June 1st, the lander and ascender separated from the orbiter and began their journey toward the Moon's hidden hemisphere. Their target was the southern part of the Apollo crater, inside the massive South Pole Aitken Basin. This location was chosen for its scientific value and its potential as a future base site. Its terrain is challenging, but it offers access to ancient rock layers that could reveal the Moon's deep history. Landing on the far side is no simple task. Because it is always facing away from Earth, direct communication is impossible. China overcame this by using the Kuiqiao-2 relay satellite, positioned to maintain a constant link between mission control and the lander. Guided by visible light cameras and a laser 3D scanner, the lander scanned the surface for hazards, adjusted its descent, and touched down at 22:23 UTC. The moment was celebrated in Chinese control rooms, but the most difficult work was still ahead. Once on the surface, the lander began collecting material using a robotic scoop for surface samples and a drill for subsurface soil. Over the next 2 days, it gathered 1,935.3 grams of lunar material, including dust, small rocks, and deeper soil from up to 2 meters below ground. This combination of surface and subsurface samples is critical because it allows scientists to compare the effects of space weathering on exposed soil with the preserved composition hidden underground. The mission also deployed a small gold-colored rover called Jinshin, or Golden Toad. Weighing only about 5 kilograms, it was equipped with cameras and an infrared spectrometer to study the soil's composition and search for traces of water ice. The rover also photographed the lander, capturing iconic images that quickly spread on Chinese social media. One striking detail was the sampling hole shaped like the Chinese character Zhong, a symbol of national pride that became a viral talking point. On June 3rd, the ascender lifted off from the Moon's surface, carrying the sealed sample container. This was a first in space history, the only launch ever performed from the Moon's far side. The small craft rendezvoused with the orbiter on June 6th in lunar orbit. Using robotic arms, the container was transferred to the return capsule. With its precious cargo secured, the orbiter fired its engines for the journey back to Earth. The return capsule separated from the orbiter as it approached our planet and performed a skip re-entry, briefly bouncing off the atmosphere to reduce heat and speed before descending by parachute. On June 25th, it landed in Inner Mongolia, where search teams quickly located it. The mission had lasted 53 days from launch to recovery, and every stage had worked as planned. Chang'e 6 proved China's ability to combine precision navigation, autonomous robotics, and complex orbital maneuvers. More importantly, it demonstrated the country's growing skill in operating far from Earth with minimal real-time human control. This kind of capability is essential for building a long-term presence on the Moon and beyond. It also gave China exclusive access to material no other nation has touched, setting the stage for major scientific discoveries and potential industrial use. If the mission itself was so impressive, then what exactly did these samples reveal that could change the balance of power in space? The samples from Chang'e 6 were far more than just lunar dust and rock. They were a message from a hidden world that no human had ever touched. From the moment they arrived in secure labs in China, scientists began analyzing their composition using high-precision instruments. Each grain carried the history of the Moon's far side, and what they found could shift both science and strategy for decades to come. One of the most striking discoveries was the high concentration of helium-3, a rare isotope that has long been seen as a potential game-changer for clean nuclear fusion. On Earth, helium-3 exists only in trace amounts, making it nearly impossible to use as fuel. But the Moon, bombarded for billions of years by solar wind, has trapped this isotope in its regolith. Early measurements from the South Pole Aitken Basin samples suggest concentrations significantly higher than those found on the near side. If extracted and used in fusion reactors, helium-3 could provide almost limitless energy without the dangerous radioactive waste that comes from current nuclear power. For scientists and engineers, this was not just exciting, it was revolutionary. Another major finding was the confirmation of water ice mixed within the lunar soil. This discovery was not entirely unexpected, but its presence in the far side's regolith was a breakthrough. Water ice is more than a survival resource. It can be split into hydrogen and oxygen, forming the basic components of rocket fuel. This means that future missions could refuel directly on the moon, drastically lowering costs and allowing spacecraft to travel farther without relying solely on Earth-based launches. In addition, the availability of oxygen could support long-term human habitats, turning the moon from a distant target into a permanent outpost. The Chang'e 6 samples also contained unusual silicates and metallic oxides with crystalline structures never seen in near-side samples. Some of these materials have properties that could be valuable for electronics, high-temperature engineering, and advanced defense technologies. Their unique crystal patterns suggest they may have formed under extreme conditions deep within the moon's crust or mantle, possibly exposed by ancient asteroid impacts. Such materials could one day be used to build stronger spacecraft components, better solar panels, or even advanced shielding for space habitats. These discoveries are not just about resources, they also reshape our understanding of how the moon formed and evolved. The South Pole Aitken Basin is one of the oldest and largest impact craters in the solar system, stretching over 2,500 kilometers in diameter and plunging more than 8 kilometers deep. By sampling from this region, scientists are essentially looking back billions of years into the moon's and perhaps Earth's geological past. Some isotopic patterns in the samples suggest that parts of the material may have come from the moon's mantle, offering clues to its internal structure. Others hint at chemical similarities with early Earth, fueling debates about whether the moon was formed from debris after a massive collision with our planet. The samples also challenge long-held theories about the differences between the moon's two faces. The near side, familiar from Earth, is covered with large dark plains formed by ancient volcanic activity. The far side, by contrast, is heavily cratered and lacks these maria. Analyzing the Chang'e 6 material could explain why this asymmetry exists, perhaps due to variations in crust thickness, heat flow, or asteroid bombardment patterns. Solving this mystery is not just a matter of curiosity. It could also help scientists understand the geology of other rocky planets and moons across the solar system. Beyond pure science, these findings have immediate implications for future technology. If helium-3 and other valuable materials can be extracted efficiently, they could power not only Earth-based reactors but also space-based energy systems. Water ice could support in-situ resource utilization, allowing the construction of lunar fuel depots. Exotic minerals might lead to the development of more efficient electronic components or radiation shields, improving safety for deep space missions. Every one of these applications pushes the moon closer to becoming an industrial hub rather than just a scientific destination. International scientists are watching closely. While China holds the physical samples, collaborations are already being discussed, though access may be limited. The precedent set by the earlier Chang'e 5 mission suggests that foreign researchers may need to wait years before receiving any portion of the material. In the meantime, Chinese teams will likely publish their findings first, shaping the global conversation about what the moon has to offer. What makes this moment so pivotal is that the discoveries from Chang'e 6 are not isolated. They are the foundation for the next stage of lunar exploration. Each new detail about the far side's composition informs the design of mining equipment, habitat construction, and energy systems. The more we know about these resources, the more realistic a permanent human presence becomes. And once that presence is established, the nation that built it will have a lasting advantage in the race beyond Earth. But while the scientific value is undeniable, there is another layer to this story, one that moves beyond the lab and into the world of economics, industry, and power. The question now is simple: how could these discoveries turn the moon into the first industrial frontier of human civilization? The discoveries from Chang'e 6 have turned the moon from a distant object of curiosity into a potential cornerstone of a new space economy. For decades, industry leaders dreamed of off-world mining and manufacturing, but they lacked proof that it could be worth the cost. Now, with helium-3, water ice, and exotic minerals confirmed in significant quantities, the moon is no longer just a scientific prize, it is the first realistic site for extraterrestrial industry. Helium-3 alone could drive a global energy revolution. If fusion technology becomes commercially viable, this isotope could replace fossil fuels and even traditional nuclear power. A single ton of helium-3, in theory, could produce as much energy as 15 million tons of coal without releasing greenhouse gases or creating radioactive waste. The economic value would be measured in trillions of dollars, and whoever controls the supply would influence the global energy market for generations. Water ice opens an entirely different business frontier. Hydrogen and oxygen derived from it could create a lunar refueling network, allowing spacecraft to launch from Earth lighter and top up their tanks on the moon before traveling to Mars or beyond. This would cut mission costs dramatically and make deep space exploration commercially viable. At the same time, oxygen could be stored for life support, enabling permanent bases without constant supply runs from Earth. Such infrastructure would turn the moon into a logistics hub for the solar system. The moon's low gravity and lack of atmosphere also make it ideal for certain types of manufacturing. High-purity metals, optical fibers, and advanced semiconductors could be produced with fewer impurities than on Earth. The unique environment allows for vacuum processes that are expensive and energy-intensive at home. Companies specializing in high-end electronics, aerospace materials, and solar panels could gain a technological edge by shifting part of their production to lunar facilities. Even construction could be transformed by in-situ resource utilization. With 3D printing technology, lunar regolith could be turned into building blocks for habitats, landing pads, and protective barriers against radiation. This would remove the need to transport heavy construction materials from Earth, reducing costs and making expansion faster. Once these systems are in place, the moon could support not just research stations but entire industrial zones. The scale of these opportunities has geopolitical weight. The nation that develops the first fully operational lunar industrial network will not only profit financially but also set the technical and regulatory standards for others to follow. In the same way that early maritime powers shaped global trade routes, the first mover in the lunar industry will decide how resources are extracted, processed, and distributed. That influence could extend far beyond economics into political leverage over access to deep space. Yet economic potential always brings competition, and competition at this scale raises questions of sovereignty, security, and law. As the lunar industry grows, so will the race to secure territory, control infrastructure, and protect supply chains. Which leads to the next critical question: how might these ambitions reshape the balance of power between nations in space? Control of the moon's resources is not just an economic advantage, it is a strategic position that could redefine global power. Nations understand that whoever builds the first permanent infrastructure on the lunar surface will gain leverage over access to fuel, materials, and deep space routes. This makes the moon more than a place for science. It becomes high ground in the most literal sense, offering both political influence and military potential. From a geopolitical view, the South Pole region is the most contested area. Its combination of sunlight for solar power and shadowed craters holding water ice makes it the ideal location for a long-term base. If one country secures that site, it could regulate who gets to refuel, who can store supplies, and who can launch deeper into the solar system. This would not only shape space exploration, but could also give that nation a stronger voice in global energy and technology markets. The military implications are just as significant. While no weapons have been placed on the moon, the infrastructure used for mining or communication could be adapted for defense. Large antennas and relay satellites could track spacecraft, monitor missile launches, and control a network of orbital assets. A base with autonomous power systems and advanced robotics could operate even during political crises on Earth, giving its owner uninterrupted space capabilities. In a conflict, that kind of resilience would be invaluable. China's advances in robotic autonomy and AI-driven operations give it a unique edge here. Unlike human missions, which are costly and vulnerable, robotic systems can be deployed quickly and in large numbers. They can also be programmed to perform dual-use functions, scientific during peacetime and strategic if tensions rise. This flexibility is something that traditional space programs like NASA's Artemis missions struggle to match, as they rely heavily on crewed operations. There is also the matter of legal gray zones. The Outer Space Treaty bans national ownership of celestial bodies, but it doesn't forbid the use or control of resources. By moving fast and building functional facilities, a country could claim de facto control over critical areas without technically breaking the law. This kind of first-mover advantage is what worries rival nations the most, because once infrastructure is in place, removing it or competing against it becomes far more difficult. As more nations and private companies enter lunar exploration, the risk of disputes will grow. Competing claims, overlapping operations, and the potential militarization of support systems could turn the moon into a zone of strategic tension. The question is no longer whether there will be competition, but how soon it will become an open rivalry. If the moon is becoming the next great arena of power, then how are other countries responding to ensure they are not left behind? The speed of China's lunar progress has forced other nations to rethink their timelines. The United States, through NASA's Artemis program, is now under pressure to accelerate its schedule. Artemis aims to land astronauts on the moon's south pole within the next few years, but with China already returning far-side samples, the urgency has grown. Officials in Washington fear that delays could allow Beijing to set the rules for how lunar resources are managed. Other countries are also making moves. India, fresh from its Chandrayaan-3 success, is planning additional missions to expand its presence. Japan is working on precision landing technology for its future Moon Sniper missions, and the European Space Agency is pushing forward with its Moon Village concept, which could serve as a shared research hub. Even smaller nations are joining international partnerships to ensure they have a voice in future space governance. The race is no longer between just two superpowers. It is a global competition. At the heart of this rush is a legal framework that has not kept pace with technology. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967 declares that space belongs to all humankind and forbids national ownership of celestial bodies. However, it says little about the commercial extraction of resources. This gap leaves room for nations to build infrastructure, mine materials, and operate bases without claiming territory, effectively allowing control through use. Some countries have tried to fill the gap. The United States passed the Commercial Space Launch Competitiveness Act in 2015, giving its companies rights to the resources they extract. Luxembourg and the United Arab Emirates have created similar laws to attract space mining ventures. Yet without a unified global agreement, conflicting claims seem inevitable. If one nation begins large-scale operations on the moon, others may feel compelled to act quickly to secure their own interests. Diplomatic talks on new space law have begun, but progress is slow. National pride, economic opportunity, and security concerns make compromise difficult. For now, the most powerful players are shaping norms through their actions rather than through treaties. This means that the first to establish a working lunar economy could set the informal rules everyone else must follow. If the rules of the game are being written on the lunar surface, what will the endgame look like for humanity's future in space? The moon has transformed from a celestial landmark into humanity's next frontier, a battleground for resources, innovation, and geopolitical influence. The discoveries from Chang'e 6, from helium-3 to water ice, prove that the moon is not just a scientific wonder, but a strategic necessity. Nations race to claim their riches, yet this competition carries risks: militarization, resource depletion, and fractured international cooperation. But there's hope. History shows that rivalry can spark collaboration, like the ISS, born from Cold War tensions. The moon could unite us too if we choose shared goals, sustainable bases, open research, and equitable resource frameworks. Imagine lunar fuel depots enabling Mars missions or fusion reactors powering Earth with clean energy. The message is clear. Space is not a zero-sum game. The moon's greatest value lies not in what one nation conquers, but in what all humanity builds together. Let this new space race be defined not by conflict, but by our collective ambition to reach further, responsibly, inclusively, and boldly. The stars await.